Now, isn't that why you hear those like just fantastic stories of like the Donald Trumps of the world that just, are paper billionaires and then overnight they're in debt the exact same amount of money because they're just over leveraged and then all of a sudden they wake up and the market turns and they're just crushed.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share conversations I've enjoyed with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits this has created. Get Invested helps you to live more, work less, and leave a legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, to make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living the dream. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at khgroup.com.au/Get Invested. Thanks for listening, and let's get invested. Welcome to a special ambush version of Get Invested. A short, sharp and shiny episode with one of the world's most successful podcasters, John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneurs on Fire fame. I was very lucky to spend a few days with JLD and his lovely partner Kate at the We Are Podcast conference in Brisbane last year. And we both realised that we have a very common goal: to help others achieve financial freedom. So he's been very gracious to break his extremely busy schedule to join me on Get Invested. But let's start by asking, what is freedom? How do you define it? Everyone's got their own definition, but for me, it's being able to do what you want, when you want, without having to worry about money. To be free then, you need to have time on your hands, and you can only do that if your income needs are being met without relying on you to generate it. You need to replace your active work income with passive recurring income. It's what I call being passive aggressive. Now, there are a number of ways that you can achieve freedom, as there's no one size fits all, because it all depends on your sleep at night factor and your mindset. What are you comfortable with? For my wife Sonia and I, we've done it through property. JLD has achieved it by building a massive income and influence generating podcast ecosystem that has produced over $13 million in US dollars gross revenue in just 6 years, and amazingly given a net return of 9.6 mil over that time. That's just incredible. All of this on the back of his daily EO Fire podcast interviews. And he's interviewed over 2,000 people to date, and they include such gurus as Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss. And you'll be interested to hear also what he's doing to turn this income into real wealth. Interestingly, he's following many of the principles I discuss in my book, The Freedom Formula. Now, in this jam-packed session, you're going to learn the benefits of dollar cost averaging, what it means to do the thing, and I can't do it anywhere near as well as JLD does with his accent, the importance of a team approach, and the need to become a person of value. Now, because of the time difference between Adelaide and Puerto Rico, I was interviewing at midnight, so I was a little bit war-weary. But JLD is always on fire, and he has this boundless enthusiasm that's very infectious. So get ready to ignite, freedom fighters, and sit back and enjoy John Lee Dumas.
Life is good.
Good to hear it's recovered from that terrible storm we had a while back, mate.
Yes, you know it.
Yeah, it's so house is all good. Everything's sort of ship-shape and shiny now.
Everything.
Bloody awesome. That was quick. No mucking around in your neck of the woods.
It's been 6 months, so, it's been some time.
Cool, mate. Now, I know you're all man of very precious time, and I love your discipline and your organisation, mate. So we won't muck around. I reckon we'll almost get straight into it. If you're clear and comfortable on the ethos behind what Get Invested's about.
Oh, let's do this, brother. I can't wait.
All right, mate. Well, I'm just checking the levels as we speak. So just say another couple of words so I'll make sure that I've got my equipment doing its thing.
This is John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Absolutely, mate. Got it down. So let's kick straight into it. So I'll give it a quick break, and then I'm going to do a pre and a post after. So I'm going to pretty much cut straight to the chase, John. So
Love it.
Here we go. The great and famous JLD, the man behind the microphone, the man that's always on fire. I'm really excited and extremely honoured, mate, to have you on the show. Welcome to Get Invested.
Bushy, I am fired up to be here, brother. Let's do this.
Mate, now I know you are an extremely busy man, so are you ready to ignite and to start a bushfire, John?
I'm ready to burn this place to the ground.
Okay, let's get to this moving. Mate, what are the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made and why?
Number one is myself. I mean, that's a simple answer for me because, I have made a lot of investments over the years, and I'll get into that in a second.
Sure.
But I've never seen a better ROI, return on investment, than putting my money, my time, my energy into myself, whether that be educating myself through listening to podcasts like this, or videos, courses, you name it. The time and energy that I spend to myself has always been the best investment. Number two, to get a little financial, because I do have a corporate financial background.
Right.
Dollar cost averaging into index funds has been a great investment for myself with what I call the core of my money. So that 80% core. So a very conservative dollar cost averaging into a broad index like the total market index and the international index.
Awesome.
And with that other 20%, I do what's called the Explorer. That's where I took a winger a few years back on both Amazon and Facebook, just two companies that I think are going to dominate the world, but I don't know that. I just think they are. So I took a winger on that, with not all of my money, but with a nice solid 20%. And, they both returned well over 100% since I've invested in them. And that number just keeps on going up. And, it'll go down when we have the next market crash, no doubt. But I think over the next 40 years that those would be good investments. And again, if they're not, that's why I have my core.
Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic, mate. No, that is awesome. Well, look, you've had an illustrious career so far, but if you were talking to your current self, was having a chat to your 18-year-old self that had just finished high school, what would you advise him to invest his time, money, and skills in order to create freedom?
I'd say do the thing. And what I mean by that is it kind of brings me back to my Army days where, we spent a lot of time training, but when it came down to it, they just pointed at a tank and they said, hey, get on that, learn how to drive it, learn how to shoot it, learn how to command it. And of course, we had teachers and guiders, but, we were never going to become proficient just reading a book or watching videos. We actually had to do the thing. So I would say to my younger self, I'd say, hey, just roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty and do a few things like, go work as an intern for a couple people that you really like and admire and respect and seem to be doing cool things out there in the entrepreneurial world. Get out there and, actually learn from them, work for them, get your hands dirty, see what the industry is. I see so many people, I think one of the biggest degrees I see here, and I don't want to offend anybody, but this is just the reality because it's in my family. But, people have this like grandiose life of what a nurse is going to be. It's going to be so great to be a nurse. I'm going to be able to walk around and help people and do this and do that. And then what do? They just invest a ton of time, a ton of energy, a ton of money, becoming a nurse, going through all the classes. And then they actually, finally years later become a nurse. And after their second day on the job, they're like, this is the worst. Like, why am I doing this? This is nothing like how I pictured it. Well, imagine what they could have saved themselves if they had just gone and just shadowed a real life nurse for a couple days and actually seen if this is what they're going to do. Because there's some people that do love that. Sure. But I've just seen so many people who have this perceived notion about what life is or what a job is going to be, and they never actually do that thing. They just spend the time, the money just to learn about it and to build themselves up towards it until it's too late. So get in there, get dirty, learn about it, and just be willing to fail and to adjust and to pivot and make things happen.
Brilliant, mate. That is sensational advice. Try before you buy. I think there's no better advice on that. And as you say, there's a lot of people who are channeled into thinking you've got to get the education, you've got to do the time, you've got to do the degree, and then find out, holy hell, the real world's completely different. I'm not doing anything that I thought was on the TV enactment of the same thing. So brilliant advice, mate. Now, moving forward then, EO Fire to date has generated over 13 mil in gross revenue since its inception, and that's only 6 years, mate. But what do you invest in to create wealth outside of your podcast business, and why? Now, we've talked about the index funds. We've talked about some more of the risky, some would say riskier stocks, but that you've obviously placed very well. Is there anything else that you invest in outside of that, mate?
I do invest in a team, that is outside of the specific podcasting area, because my team does so much more. They basically do everything that I'm not doing. So, while I'm recording this podcast, I have people on my team doing other things, running ads, optimizing funnels, doing sales copy, making sure my social media is on point. So I always have people that are better at me, that are better than me at doing these things. And, so they love doing them. I don't like doing them. Because they like doing them, they're good at doing them. Because I don't like doing them, I'm not good at doing them. I know where my strong suits are. I really focus on that. And then I just hire people to do the things that I'm not great at. So of course, an accountant and a lawyer's a great example of that. But, even more nitpicky, like into the social media aspect of things, I think it's really critical that you identify areas that you can't or don't or aren't good at spending time at, hire there. Like that's a great use of your money to invest in yourself.
Absolutely. And I think a really good insight you picked up on there, because entrepreneurs in particular feel like they are the best at everything and the only ones that can do things well. But
I never thought that.
No, okay.
I've never thought that I'm the best at everything. I've always been like, man, I'm so bad at almost everything.
I don't believe that, mate.
No, it's true, except these couple things. Like I think I'm great at a couple things, but I honestly think I'm so bad at so many things. Like, it's putting together our lawn furniture outside. I'm not even going to open up the box. Like, we have a handyman. That person's going to do it. He's going to enjoy doing it. He's going to do a great job. Yeah. Figuring out my TV, my audio setup. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Like, I think that I'm really bad at most things. Why? Because I haven't spent any time getting good at those things. So why should I be good at them? I'm not going to be born great at all these things I've never tried before, but other people have spent the time, the energy, and effort to get great at things. Put them in the wheelhouse to hit that home run and let them do it.
Yeah, I love it, mate. That's brilliant advice, mate. Now, I'm mimicking the old EO Fire exercise here, flipping the tables for a minute, and I'm calling it the ambush. So, mate, are you ready to do the lightning round and start a bushfire?
Let's start that bushfire.
Let's get that going, mate. So what's your favourite quote and why?
My favorite quote is an Albert Einstein quote. Try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value. And Bushy, straight up, like the first 32 years of my life, I was chasing success. And I guess what? I wasn't finding it and I wasn't having it. And that's the reason, because I was chasing that success. But when I heard that quote and I finally realized the meaning of it, and I said, how can I just add value, which, started off for me being a daily podcast host, bringing great guests on to share their story, their lessons, their knowledge, because they had the value, but I was the conduit for that. That's when things changed, and becoming that person of value is something I continue to put at the forefront ever since. That's
brilliant, mate. I have a similar expression. I call people, they're either investors or out-vestors. And an out-vestor who is someone who gives value and helps others. An investor who tends to focus on just themselves. And there's a bit of a spectrum, so you can start as an investor and become an out-vestor. But I've seen on your career and your journey, mate, you've definitely moved from the investor to out-vestor, mate. And that's, as you say, that's probably been a big secret to your success. So that's awesome, mate. Now, on a similar sort of topic, what's your the top book you would recommend people read and why?
I'm reading The Four Horsemen right now, which I think is really fascinating, and that's about Google, Amazon, Facebook, and who am I missing as a fourth? Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. Apple's the fourth horseman.
Of course.
And I think it's just really fascinating why they've become the four horsemen. And I actually haven't even got to the Apple part in the book yet, which is why I forgot about them.
Sure.
But I've read through the Facebook and the Amazon, and right now I'm in the Google section, and it's just really fascinating as to why they've become the behemoths that they are. And why it's going to be really hard to take them down, because the reality is, they're not just Google. They're not just Facebook. Like, oh, Instagram becomes popular, it might take down Facebook. Let's buy them. Oh, WhatsApp has all the attention. Let's buy them. And so they are just buying the attention because they have the money. And it's just that the rich are just getting richer in that area.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how that folds out, actually. No, be a really good read. I haven't read that one myself, so that'll go on the show notes, and I'll be keen to have a dig into that. Now, what's the best piece of investment advice you've ever received, John?
Besides just like the investing in myself, which I heard from other people, I'd say to dollar cost average, and just that came from a lot of people. I've read a lot of books over the years, like the Warren Buffetts and the Bogles of the world.
Sure.
And it just makes a lot of sense where, hey, you may not have $100,000 to drop into the market right now, but if you are able and willing to drop in $200 once a month on the first of every month into an index fund, your dollar cost averaging, meaning that when the market's up, you're buying less shares because you're investing that $200. When the market's down, you're buying more shares. Over time, with the trending of the market over 30, 50, 70 years, like that's going to return a really great investment for you. And so, for me, dollar cost averaging was a great piece of advice. Yeah,
love it. It's something that a lot of people aren't focusing on currently. It was certainly flavour of the month. 20 years ago, when I started investing pretty seriously in both property and the equities markets, that was something that was talked about a lot. It seems to have faded a little bit, and I'm really glad that you've honed in on that, because we can reinforce that with the listeners, mate. So, sensational.
Can I give my least favorite investing advice?
Yes, please. Yes. Awesome. Do that too.
And I want to just, throw a little ringer out there. Like, I am don't actually know that much about this area of investing because I just don't like it. But I really think that real estate investing is so overrated. To me, like, I've done it before and I look at it, and I'm sure a couple people have figured it out, but I think that 99% of people get into real estate investing and they just don't realize the time suck, and that when they finally can turn that profit, it just gets eaten away by all these fees and this and that. But hey, that's just one man's opinion, and I think you need to make your own decisions in life. But that's an area where I will not be investing in.
Well, let me just share something very briefly with you on that. We've made our fortune out of real estate. But there's a massive difference between the real estate market in the States, and I own property in the States, by the way, and real estate in Australia, because Australia has a fascination with property, and from a leverage perspective, there's no better asset class in the Australian market than property to leverage your growth, because the shares and property in Australia track very similar in terms of growth. But the banks will let you borrow up to 95% of the value of property. With shares and equities, if you're leveraging, you can only get about half that. So you can effectively get double the result in property that you can.
Now, isn't that why you hear those just fantastic stories of the Donald Trumps of the world that just, are paper billionaires, and then overnight they're in debt the exact same amount of money because they're just over leveraged, and then all of a sudden they wake up and the market turns and they're just crushed.
Yeah, and the same happens in equities too. The equities market's a lot more volatile here. Again, as I say, very different markets in the States. I own property in the States, and there's very little growth in the States. It's good cash flow if you set up the right way, but very little equity growth. So in the US context, completely understand. I wouldn't invest in shares for growth either. In property for growth either. But very different story here in Oz. So next time you're over here, mate, let me shout you a drink and a feed, and I'll talk to you about how you could make money in Australian property.
And I will politely decline on not the drink, but probably the conversation.
No, awesome. Okay, now last thing, I don't know about the States, but I know in Australia we all pay way too much tax. In fact, almost half of our income goes in tax if you're the average employee. What's the top thing you've done to pay less tax, mate? And I'm guessing it's probably living in
Puerto Rico.
Yes, yeah, so exactly. I thought you would say
back in 2013, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, so it is the territory of the U.S. So you don't even need a passport to come to this Caribbean island. It's about 1,000 miles off of the coast of Florida. Oh. And it's a beautiful little Caribbean island. It's 100 miles wide and 40 miles in width.
Beautiful.
And they passed a bill it was actually a decree in 2013 and said, hey, anybody that moves their business and themselves to Puerto Rico and fulfills a few requirements, like you do have to actually live here, which I now do, and I own a beautiful home and have a great community and have made great friends. You know, it's not all perfection, but it's worked out really well. If you do that, you pay a flat, bushy, wait for it, 4%.
No
tax.
way. 4%.
I was paying 51% in the States, 51%, and now I'm paying 4%. So I moved to Puerto Rico, and I gave myself a 47% raise.
Mate, is there a vacant block next to yours? I think I'm coming to Puerto Rico.
Go to eofire.com/crib, and you'll see a walkthrough of my home, and then you'll see, funnily enough, that empty lot that you're talking about right next to me.
All right, I'm putting tabs on it, mate. You might have an Australian neighbour.
It is available for international, I will say. It's not just for Americans.
Okay, that's sensational, mate. Look, been absolute gold in a very short space of time. It's been a bit of a machine gun dance, mate, but I really appreciate you dedicating some of your extremely valuable time to have a chat with someone from down under. I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of that, mate. So if anyone who hasn't heard of you, and most people have in the podcast world, but where should they get in touch with you, mate?
Well, listen, all the magic happens at eofire.com. Head over there. We have links to our podcast, but then we also have some free courses, a free course on how to podcast, on how to do webinars, on how to create a funnel. So just some like really quick hitting, valuable courses completely for free that can be really valuable resources. eofire.com.
Sensational, John. Look, give your lovely Kate a huge hug from myself and Sonia. We really enjoyed your company in Brisbane when you were over. It was an awesome few days.
I love Brisbane.
Keep up the fantastic work, mate. And if you're ever over this way, would love to catch up and keep a watch on that vacant lot next door, mate. Because, I could be knocking on the door asking you for a bowl of sugar. Right on it. Thanks, JFD. Bye, mate. Bye. How good was that? I hope you enjoyed it. To get a summary of all the investment gold and to get a copy of the show notes, email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.khgroup.com.au/Get Invested. And join me next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.